Greetings, brothers and sisters. So I wanted to include this introduction yesterday for the comments that I read at the end of the video, but it'll work here. I got a bunch of things to get to, some great pictures of Johnny Depp and his new truther ring, or truth ring, Ozzy Osbourne ghouling it up, and then a bunch of things to do with that Disinformation board and stuff on MSNBC about them hijacking truther stuff, which is, always happens. But I want to start here. So there's this creature called the Lampsilus mussel.
In the streams of Missouri lives the Lampsilus mussel, a simple animal with an extraordinary life cycle.
So this is from the PBS show Nature. And I saw this with my family. We used to watch this I think it was Sunday night or Saturday night years ago with my kids. I always liked these kind of programs. I've always been fascinated with animal life and nature. And, my kids enjoyed it at the time when they were younger. They're not into these things now. But, we all were then.
To reach adulthood, its young must spend part of their lives inside a fish, the largemouth bass. To get there, the mussels must make physical contact, a difficult task, as mussels don't swim. But the bass has a weakness. It's a voracious predator of small fish, particularly darters. Even the slightest wriggle of a darter's tail will attract bass. Believe it or not, the fish on the mussel is an imitation.
Here's the Lampsilus mussel, right? And here is some of these darter fish. The Lampsilus mussel has learned to mimic extraordinarily well the darter fish and then move it back and forth. It's created part of this thing out of its own, body. Its tongue, I guess is what it's called. And it's, it's able to, let's just watch this here.
A perfect replica that will lure bass within striking range. The mussel can somehow sense approaching fish and wriggles its lure faster to entice them. If it gets the twitching just right, the remarkable likeness should do the rest.
So it's able to lure the bass over to it so it can, you're going to see what it's going to do next, but this is quite extraordinary, right? When the bass comes out and bites it, it shoots out these eggs. So you think about this, right? This, you have this mussel, and it is less evolved than the darter fish, which it mimics, and less evolved than the bass, right? It has less, capacity. I don't know what size its brain is. I don't know what kind of thoughts it has, what its consciousness level. Just think about this, right? It has it's a lower developed creature, a simple creature with, various levels of, muscle and whatever it's made up of, right? It's just it's just a muscle, right? It's like this, some muscle in a shell, right? It's not some huge brain here. There's no eyes. There's no, sensory organs that we know about. Does it have a sense of smell? What does it have, right? Very limited in terms of its capacity to perceive the world around it. And so somehow, even though it shouldn't, it can't move, right? It doesn't have any, they can close their shells, these things, and, but it's stuck here on the bottom. It's stationary. And it doesn't have the ability to, like if you think about an artist, like we have the ability to see this darter fish, right? We have the ability to see the bass and the darter fish. Imagine us drawing a darter fish or making a darter fish out of clay. Like, could we even come close to this replica? Like, we can't even, most of us, there's some artists out there that could. Very few people, but it's a small percentage of people that could reproduce a darter fish either in picture form or more realistically in statue form, making it out of clay or something, to be something like this, right? To reach this level of mimicry that it could fool a bass. I mean, there's people who make lures and make go into the fish store and you see these lures, and they're not nearly as accurate as this, fish is, that this part of the mussel is. And I think I've thought about this for a long time. Like every once in a while, I think about it, right? Because to me, this is about God and divinity and consciousness. And so this creature that's less evolved than the minnow, who can't see the minnow, can't feel the minnow, how did it do this, right? How did it know to create this? How was it able to create this creature, right? And it doesn't really even understand the bass, because the bass is a completely more complex animal that swims around and has eyes and sensory organs, and it's just more evolved, bigger brain, bigger level of consciousness. And, it has some eggs inside of it, but it's never seen the bass's lungs. It doesn't know that it's going to shoot these eggs out, these little baby clams out there, and they're going to go into the bass's lungs and clamp down somewhere and suck blood off it until they're ready to, hatch or something. So it doesn't have any consciousness of the bass, doesn't have any consciousness of itself. And, putting out these little clams, probably doesn't even know what it's doing, right? In terms of, it's like, a male human being conscious of their sperm, right? Like we have understanding of the reproductive system, but, like mammals don't, like a male dog or a male, the female with eggs and things like this. I mean, there's instinctual levels and urges and things like that, but no consciousness, right? No understanding of how life begins and all of it, and pregnancy and the things like this. And so this thing has created, this blind, low evolved creature has created sort of a masterpiece of a lure here.
And some mussels mimic them. Considering mussels are blind and have never seen a shiner, the likeness is incredible.
So then there's other fish that some of the mussels mimic those fish.
The eyes, fins, and even the stripe look just right. Yet the mussel knows nothing of its own appearance. These lures have evolved because bass more often attack mussels that look like fish. So fishy-looking mussels leave more descendants.
So that's the Darwinian explanation here, right? That somehow these mussels, some of them ended up just happened to look like some of these fish, right? And so the bass attack them more often, so they would be the ones that reproduce. And so more and more of these mussels that look like fish were the ones that got, moved forward on the evolutionary path. And that, isn't a good explanation. There's something more here. There's something more going on beyond this, Darwinian limitations, where there has to be some evolutionary explanation for why this has happened, right? There's, divinity here, spiritual, energy and consciousness, which I'll, allude to here in a bit.
After millions of years of blind evolution, this process of selection has turned mussel flesh into a lifelike lure. It takes a good imitation to fool a bass in clear water, and some of them are incredible. This darter mimic even has a mouth which gulps.
Right here, right? So the whole thing. And so, you think about, where does the consciousness come? The mussel isn't on this level. It's a blind, mussel. It can't see, can't perceive the world around it. It's not conscious of, any of these things, right? And yet this has happened. And some random mussel just happened to produce something that looked like a minnow, and next thing you know, there was all these offspring, and it just kept on happening. I mean, there's ways of, like, evolutionary ways of trying to figure it out, which they're trying to do here in this nature program, because it's PBS is going to have some Darwinian theory here. But in reality, there is a consciousness here, a divine consciousness. There is this element of somebody writing this comment about, this is all fake, and, this is a simulation and all these things. But there has to be some divine programming, some, level of consciousness for something like this to happen, right? That this creature, for its survival, could end up randomly just producing these, without any consciousness of it doing it itself, and lure these bass into it, and lure these, these creatures, these more evolved creatures, so it can inject them with its offspring. I mean, it's just, incredible testament to the, the etheric aspect of life, the spiritual aspect of life, where things can flow in an automatic way. This wasn't a plan. It wasn't thought out. It wasn't, there was no mental construction like we would do. Like if we're, creating some sort of artwork, we come up with a plan, we come up with a vision, then we execute that vision and create something, where there was none of that here. The creature doesn't have that potential or capacity. It just simply naturally developed this, and it is, a remarkable feat. So we'll come back to all that in a moment, later on when I do the narration of the video. But let's start here. So this thing happened with the Disinformation Agency director, Nina Jankowicz, and she was on this guy Chris Hayes' show. And you can see here.
In April, the Department of Homeland Security announced the creation of a Disinformation Governance Board.
So this is the information war, or the info war. They're stealing stuff from Alex Jones and the discredited shill Alex Jones, but still. It shows you that they have no creative capacity themselves, right? They're so against disinformation. This is MSNBC, and they've copied Alex Jones with the information war. And we already know that there's, what I talked about Alex Jones and the information war, that there was this idea that if you woke enough people up, they would all vote a certain way and take the government back away from these evildoers. That's the thought, the remedial thought in people who follow Alex Jones and, have this idea, which we know now, number one, didn't happen because pretty much everybody's been given these theories and they've ruled on them themselves. They've made a decision on which side they fall on. And the majority of people still fall on the official story, still believe in the official story, or at least are, have no interest in trying to usurp the people who run the system, overthrowing the system. But if they did, and I've documented this before, there's so much debt, there's so much dysfunction in our system, so much evil, it can never be fixed, right? It can never be redeemed. And so, like I said, there's in my video maybe yesterday, these prophecies do not concern you. You are undergoing the damaging effects of this insidious pollution that will lead the world to collapsing, but you can neither stop time nor modify the system in place. Then protect yourself as well as possible from the harmful effects and pray for your brothers and sisters of the future. This is from Babaji, the second master of the heartfulness system. And so the important line in there is you cannot modify the system in place. So that means the information war is a joke, right? Doesn't work. But from their standpoint, suppressing people who are putting out information that is going to reveal the faultiness of their narrative can work, right? The information war is them trying to hold on to people's hearts and minds and get people to, throw away or disparage or discriminate against any of these types of alternative narratives, right? And both MSNBC that did this thing with information war and CNN that stole reality check from Ben Swan, who himself is, not a real truther. And so they don't have their own creative ability to come up with these concepts, right? They just steal stuff because they suck at what they do and they don't have original ideas, and the narrations they're putting out, the narratives, are so suspect, right?
It would be an entity to work to combat the very real, dangerous issue of disinformation online and elsewhere.
Very dangerous. The disinformation is very dangerous, right? Like the people who have really no money, very little resources, almost no power, not, I guess we should call voting. I mean, in terms of the people who listen to truther videos, you know who you are, right? We have very little power compared to the corporations, compared to the big media giants, compared to the government, compared to Hollywood celebrities. I mean, all these people have various levels of power, material power, political power, money power, and people who are just talking about different narratives that go against the governmental narrative, why would that be dangerous, right? Why would be something that is what we know is more truthful dangerous, right? Well, when your system is built on lies, when your system is a complete illusion and a Ponzi scheme, then yeah, the truth is dangerous, right? The truth is dangerous, and that's what they're saying. They're finally admitting that, the truth is the kryptonite to our system. And, like the truth will make the system collapse, which isn't good for all of us. And on a material level, it's good spiritually. And it needs to happen. It's good for the planet. It's good for our souls. But all of us as egos, all of us as human beings, yeah, it's going to suck for a while if the system collapses. And the truth will set you free.
With a stated goal to, quote, coordinate countering misinformation related to Homeland Security.
And they already do that already, but whatever.
Now, the woman appointed to lead that effort is a woman named Nina Jankowicz. She's a former Disinformation Fellow at the Wilson Center. And the
A Disinformation Fellow. I'm a Disinformation Fellow. She's a fellow. So remember this Mary Poppins lady.
Mainstream outlets show disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious.
She's atrocious. She's a little bit crazy.
It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie.
All right, so we know who she is. I showed you this yesterday. How to Lose the Information War by Nina Jankowicz.
The author of the book, How to Lose the Information War, which is about
Russia, fake news, and the future of conflict.
international relations and disinformation. But almost immediately after the announcement, a right-wing frenzy ensued, helped along, I think, by the vaguely ominous title of The Office, and she found herself on the receiving end of a concerted campaign by the very same forces disinformation her office would face, now attacking.
So you're not going to say that our security, the security part of our government, the NSA, the not security, but the intelligence part of our government, NSA and the CIA and the FBI, have never put out any disinformation, right? That campaigns don't put out disinformation, and Hollywood doesn't put out disinformation, and the mainstream media doesn't put out disinformation. That's all you guys do, right? I mean, even if it's truth, you guys weave together in these various levels of lies and things.
Her and undermining her credibility with wild conspiracy theories and lies. It was so much that yesterday, DHS announced the formation of the office had been put on hold.
Wait a minute. It was so many conspiracy theories and lies, and you caved to them, that it's all BS, that there was this smear campaign launched by right-wing conspiracy theorists, so much so that you stopped an agency that was going to get rid of a threat to our government. Like you caved. They're that weak that there's some rumors online, some disinformation. You guys caved to disinformation. This was your. I mean, I covered this yesterday, but the way he just put this, it sheds a new light on it. They caved to disinformation. You said a bunch of disinformation came out about this woman and the agency that's supposed to battle disinformation said, all right, we're not going to, you guys, we're going to take our ball and go home. We're not going to do this anyway. You guys, you didn't even get into the game and you got whacked.
And this morning, Nina Jankowicz resubmitted her resignation. Tonight, she joins me for her first television interview.
She's so somber and sad. Where's the Mary Poppins we all know and love? Come on. Don't be sad. Come on, Amber. Come on, fellow.
Thanks for joining us. First, just to start at ground level, like what was this thing that was announced, and what was it going to do?
Well, Chris, it was going to do exactly what you said. All these sensationalist narratives about what the board was, what people thought the board was going to do are completely wrong. It was a coordinating mechanism. It was meant to...
It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie.
Make sure that the very large agency that is the Department of Homeland Security, that people were talking to each other within it. So let me give you an example.
They don't talk to each other? You're saying that the Homeland Security people don't talk to each other. They didn't talk to each other, but we're going to talk between them. We're going to be a middleman between people in the Homeland Security and make sure they are talking to each other because, it's very cliquey over there.
FEMA, the agency that handles disasters and environmental issues, would often counter misinformation about natural disasters. And let's say a foreign adversary like Iran or China perhaps would put out a narrative that says, oh, you know, here's how you get out of this city, or here's where you can find disaster aid. And that.
You know what? Don't blame us on foreign governments. There is a lot of Americans, American citizens, many of them who consider themselves patriots, not me. I'm not a patriot. I work for God, not the government or the country or whatever, you know, and myself, you know. But it's not, but there's lots of Americans that are putting out what you guys call disinformation. And what you guys call disinformation is anything that you guys say in the government, in the media, that's supposed to be the official story. When anybody comes up with some kind of narrative that we believe is much more truthful than what the crap you guys are putting out, you guys call it disinformation, right?
That could put people really into danger, their lives into danger. That's the sort of disinformation and misinformation that we were looking to support the department.
Oh, it was like when Iran and China put out evacuation plans for a natural disaster that would lead people into harm's way. It was just, that was what they were doing all along, and you guys wrecked it with your trolling of me and your, you know, my. Oh, you guys didn't like my Mary Poppins song?
It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie.
Addressing to make sure that they had best practices and, most importantly, to protect Americans' freedom of speech, civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy while we were doing all of that work. So every characterization of the board that you've heard up until now has been incorrect. And frankly, it's kind of ironic that the board itself was taken over by disinformation when...
We agree on that, fellow. It's hilarious. You guys got rolled by what you call disinformation, right? Well, you know, that's your fault because you guys are completely unaware of the truth community and the people who, you know, we don't trust the government, so many of us. And it could be liberal people, it could be conservative people, it could be, you know, libertarian. I mean, any different levels of people just don't trust the government and the media because we've caught you guys lying over and over again. Well, you lose trust with somebody in a relationship, and we have a relationship with the government, with media, then, you know, anything that you say, we're going to question because we consider you liars because you are. You've been caught lying. Everybody lies, but you guys do it on a different level. And so that's not our fault. And so when you roll something out with Jojo Magoo, this incompetent guy that no one wants to say he's got dementia, I mean, even George W. Bush is claiming that, you know, 75 is too old, and or whatever he is, 74 in yesterday's video, and when he made a gaffe, but Jojo Magoo is 79. And, you know, not just the age, but he's breaking down mentally and all the things that have happened. And we don't trust what you guys say. And so when you roll out a new agency and you say it's for this or that, we're not going to trust you. Plus, you know, you didn't do that. You didn't bring this out in some way that was, I mean, you guys don't explain things very well. You suck at communicating. And you're saying that this agency was going to be in charge of communication between different various agencies in Homeland Security, but you sucked at like communicating what your agency was about, right? And, you know, we don't believe the story anyway.
So every characterization of the board that you've heard up until now has been incorrect. And frankly, it's kind of ironic that the board itself was taken over by disinformation when it was meant to fight it.
So exactly. And, you know, like that's just loser talk right there. Like you guys caved. I mean, like, come on. Like, where's your backbone and where's your spine? Like you guys didn't, you know, where's your cojones? You guys didn't have the balls to pull this off.
Because no one thinks we have the balls to pull this off.
So just to sort of give the argument on the other side, I mean, when I was watching this play out and I was watching the frenzy develop, right, I sort of was running this thought experiment of like, well, how would I feel back in, 2005 under the Bush administration if the Bush administration had announced this thing with this title, right? And they had appointed someone that I thought was, a Republican or conservative. And, it felt like, okay, well, here's the use of the state right? State power to patrol speech or to claim things are disinformation that they don't like. Like, what do you say to people that say, look, even if your intentions were good or this was just bureaucratic, that even stepping into this zone poses some non-crazy alarms for folks that are concerned about that kind of thing?
That is actually a kind of a good question, which I didn't expect from him, but let's see what Mary Poppins has to say.
Well, I fully understand Americans' concerns that they don't want government involved in policing speech. And good news, this initiative wasn't involved in policing speech, and neither was I. I think,
You guys are totally involved in that. And just, it's like wearing some sort of a mask here.
It is important that our government get involved when we have real threats to our national security. So it's not...
You can call anything a threat to national security.
Just things like election interference, which we've seen and which DHS has combated also, but threats at the border, disinformation that is driving people to migrate here, disinformation that could affect critical infrastructure like our financial systems and gas pipelines. All of that has very real effects.
It has real effects, and they put out any kind of information. They'll go, disinformation will take down, or not even disinformation, the truth will take down this system. That's what this is about. I've said it myself. I don't want everybody to wake up. Like I've said this, it's already, the whole information war thing from a truther's perspective has been played out long ago. Like I said earlier, because if you wake everybody up, then the system collapses. The system is kept going by cooperation through faulty perception of the system being strong and that our currency is worth something, that debt is worth something. It's an emperor has no clothes. If people realize that our dollar has no value, and then this, what do you think happens then? The whole economic system and everything else collapses. And so for me, I'm like, there needs to be some level of sheeple. People are like, oh, we got to wake all the sheeple up. All right, then, then you guys can fight over scraps and canned goods and things in some post-apocalyptic situation where our economic system has completely collapsed because people don't believe in it anymore. It's built on perception. The only thing that the waking everybody up would do is take down the system everyone's 100% dependent on, and that would be a good thing, but, a bad thing, right?
Safety of Americans. And frankly, I think DHS and other federal agencies need to be involved because this problem isn't going away. It's only getting worse.
It's only getting worse, and we just caved when the agency didn't even get going.
Well, let's talk about combat, because I think that word is interesting, right? Like, what does that mean tangibly, right? If when you say combat disinformation, because obviously we're having an incredibly intense meta debate about speech and platforms, regulation and moderation there.
He's got like Trump-level small hands.
Of them. So what is your vision, or what would the board's vision or anyone's vision from a government potential perspective be to combat disinformation?
It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie.
A lot of the work that DHS has been doing for over a decade now is just about putting good information out there. Again,
exactly. Good information that we control, and it's going to support our narratives and all the things that we believe in.
Information about where Americans can seek disaster aid, information about where Americans can vote, information about the border not being open, for instance. So that's one thing that I had hoped that we would do. And I've spent a lot of my career, testifying both before Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the aisle, advising foreign governments about how to build resilience in populations. People need the tools to navigate today's information environment. It's incredibly...
Yeah, exactly. We got, the people can't navigate the internet and figure things out for themselves. They don't have the ability to think and make decisions. We got to make sure that we can guide them in the right direction and suppress things that we can't control, because otherwise, they might start thinking for themselves.
Overwhelming. And so I had hoped that we would do some creative programs to equip people with the tools they need to find that information in today's information environment. Not to say what was true or false. That was never the intention.
One more question on this, and then I want to ask about your personal experience. But how is disinformation as a category different than just stuff that's wrong, right? Because sometimes I think that term itself, it's a little bit of a fuzzy boundary, right? Like, people are wrong about lots of things. There's lots of wrong stuff online. There's wrong stuff said.
And you guys are the arbiters of what's right and wrong. You know, I've talked about this before. There's very few things that are factual. You know, there's 2 + 2 = 4. That's factual to everybody but Will Smith.
You're in a universe and 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 only equals 4 if you accept that 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 is going to be what I want it to be. You know?
You know, there's some scientific, proven, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, factual things, right? But history and opinions about things, I mean, you know, history is his story. And the victor gets to say what happened historically, right? And so you can say, if a court rules that somebody is convicted of, you know, somebody gets convicted of a crime, they are now whatever crime, they're a bank robber. Or you can say that this person's a bank robber, and that's considered a fact because they were convicted. But if they're on trial, they're an alleged bank robber, right? But that doesn't mean the court got the right, you know, the court could have been wrong, right? And so there's very few facts. Most things are opinions. Most things are, you know, are things that people think or believe or whatever. And two people can see something that happened and have a totally different view of what happened, right? People will have different lenses in which they see the world. You can watch a movie with somebody, but you don't end up watching the same movie. Like, you talk about it, and they see the movie in a completely different way because people are so subjective. So there's no real facts. For most things aren't factual, right? So there's an authority. And there's, you know, the authority that says this is fact and this is fiction on all of those things. And that's what this is about. There's an authority here, the government, the media, who, you know, in terms of YouTube, it's what they call the authoritative news, right? These are, you know, the news places like CNN and MSNBC, like somehow they're better equipped to perceive reality. And they're clearly not, right? And we don't agree on the same authority. That's what I say. When I talk to somebody and they throw out some scientific fact or, you know, not that I argue with people because I don't care. I don't try to change people's minds, but I say to them, we don't agree on the same authority. You're using this publication or this agency or this person as the authority, and I don't agree with you. I don't believe they're an authority. I don't, you know, believe that they know more than I do or they're honest or whatever it might be.
Said by people that I love, but why is it? What is the category of disinformation that makes that distinct from wrong stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question and something that often is mischaracterized as well. Disinformation is false or misleading information spread with malign intent. So that's when we have those bad actors, our foreign adversaries. Like,
see, why is she being interviewed here? There was an agency you guys tried to put together that is combating disinformation, and it didn't ever get off the ground because of what you guys call disinformation. So, like, she admitted that earlier. And then she quit. The agency quit. You know, Biden quit on the agency. The agency folded before it even started. And she folded. So this is the person that lost. Like, when do we give this much time to the team that lost the championship in such an epic fashion that they didn't even get on the court, right? You literally lost the game before it even started. The first time you had to battle disinformation, as you call it, you lost to it. You're 0-1 against disinformation as a agency and as a person, and you quit. And you're a quitter, right? The agency quit and you quit. And yet she's being interviewed by this guy like she has, you know, you're a quitter and a loser, right? That's, in America, that doesn't fly, fellow. Come on.
Like China, Iran, maybe Russia, spreading that stuff. Misinformation is also harmful, but it's when, you know, Aunt Sally or Uncle John are spreading those rumors or conspiracy theories at the dinner table. It can have effects on people's livelihoods and safety as well.
Yeah, it can destroy. It's just horrible. Like, you know, all this power that's there.
But again, we were focused on disinformation, that disinformation spread with malign intent. And that wasn't anything to do with politics. It was, again, where disinformation crossed homeland security and the safety of the American people.
That's, I think, actually a really useful definitional distinction.
It is, loser, quitter, you know.
Precisely to sort of put those at odds. Finally, we have about 90 seconds left. Like, I have watched this happen multiple times in my public life career. Van Jones, when he was at a position in the White House, who was run out of office because he'd signed some petition, and Shirley Sherrod, who was
Not Shirley Sherrod.
officer of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who said something wildly taken out of context. Like, what was the experience of being the focal point of this sort of like massive frenzy like over the last few weeks?
Well, it was really overwhelming, Chris. I mean, frankly, you know, I have prided myself over my career of being a really nuanced, reasonable person. Again, as I said, I've briefed and advised both Republicans and Democrats. I admire some of the steps that
And you're a fellow of Disinformation.
the Trump administration even took to combat disinformation, including Senator Rob Portman and his bills against
You work for Trump's.
deepfakes and, you know, funding the Global Engagement Center at the State Department. So to say that I'm just a partisan actor was wildly out of context. And then beyond that, it wasn't just, you know, these mischaracterizations of my work, but it was death threats against my family. Over the last 3 weeks, I have maybe had 1 or 2 days I didn't report a violent threat, something like, we're coming for you and your family. You and your family should be sent to Russia to be killed. Encouragement of me to commit suicide. All of those have been for.
Yeah, but it sounds what it's like to have social media, you know. I mean, I started making comment videos years ago, and one of the first comments, which I found funny, was this one. Pockets of the future, you are a dip ass, a word I can't say that begins with R. Pockets of the future, you are a dip ass, word I can't say that begins with R. I hope you get cancer and AIDS. All the replies are trolls. Nobody believes in you. F T word. This is one of my first. So this is one of the first comments I covered in comment videos, which I laughed when I got it, right? I've had threats, all these things as well. Everybody who's online has those things, right? Anybody who's, you know, voices an opinion on the internet gets something. Your name called, all those things, right? And like this is
forwarded to the Department of Homeland Security's security services, and you know that's not something that is American. That is not how we should be.
This is totally American. That's the internet. You were on the internet. That's what happened, and it shows you that the Department of Homeland Security can't do anything because they didn't catch one person who threatened your family, right? I mean, if that legitimately happened, you reported all these things that happened to you to the Department of Homeland Security, and it's not the Homeland Security, it's your personal. This is should be a police matter, and nothing happened, right? They didn't find the people, nothing happened with it. And so, you know, these agencies, I mean, they don't protect individual people, and the internet is a vicious place, and Americans suck. They're mean, everyone's, you know, like trolly and whatever it is, right? And so you were on the internet, and you got, you know, what people get when you're on the internet. You did that stupid Mary Poppins song. You came out as a disinformation lady, and a lot of people have got strong feelings about that.
Acting when we have disagreements about policy in this country. I think we need to learn how to be adults in the room, and I don't have time for that childish.
You know, like this.
It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote. Oh.
So is that being the adult in the room?
I'm not going to let it silence me. I'm going to go forward and continue.
You did let it silence you. You backed out. You quit from this job. Like you're kind of a joke now. This is probably your last interview. Unless they roll you out for some reason. Like you're an expert of something that, you know, the majority of people don't like fact checkers. I mean, I don't know what the polling data is on fact checkers. But, you know, it's coming from a position of an authority, an authority we don't all agree upon, right? Who's the authority when it comes to truth? We don't believe it's the government or the media or somebody like you, right?
Building awareness about this threat in the future.
All right, Nina Jankowicz, I'm very sorry that happened to you, really. And thank you for taking some time tonight.
Sorry you had the experience of being on the internet, you know, the way people are on the internet. And I'm not saying trolling people and threatening them is a good thing. Like anybody who engages in that behavior, It's the same behavior I get here, and I am very clear about it when I mock people who leave comments, any kind of comments like this, and, you know, threatening somebody, and, I mean, you know, their families and stuff isn't cool, but just trolling them in general, because it doesn't work, right? I mean, you know, like, it's kind of funny that the Disinformation Agency got trolled by what they call disinformation, and they completely folded. They put their tail between their legs, and they, you know, they quit, right? That's, you know, that's hilarious. But again, I'm not in favor of the behavior. It's a hostile behavior. It doesn't work. And it's just filled with, you know, it's putting more hate out there, right? Like, your hate is, I said this over and over again, anybody's hate is their own hate. My anger is my own anger. My fear is my own fear, right? The object of your hate, like if you hate this woman, she's the object of the hate. She isn't the hate. The hate's in you. She's the, you know, the face of the hate that's in you, right? Like, you hate somebody, you hate Biden, you hate somebody, you know, Trump, whatever it is, right? The object of your hate isn't the hate's inside of you, and it finds an object so it can express itself. But anyways, I'm in the editing process, and I realize one thing I failed to mention here is that the energy, the passion is on the people in the so-called truth community. The people on, you know, the sheeple aren't passionate about this, right? I mean, nobody really loves the government. Nobody really trusts the media. Everyone knows that politicians are liars and things like this. There's not much passion in supporting the mainstream or the, you know, people vote, but they like hold their nose and pull the lever, right? They don't. I mean, there was some, you know, passion behind Trump, but for the most part, there isn't much passion in the, you know, in the mainstream position. Like, an example of this is they say like 50% of the Americans support the UN and 33% don't, and some like 20 something percent, the, you know, the remainder of people don't know. And the 33% that don't support the UN are very passionate, you know, 31, 32, I don't know what it was, something like that, right? But those people who don't like the UN are pretty passionate about it, right? They have strong feelings. The other people really don't know much about it. And so, like, oh yeah, it's probably good, you know, whatever. And so the passion here is always going to be in the people who are seeking alternative explanations and don't really trust or believe in the government or the media anymore. And that's what this agency bumped up against, right? The passion is, you know, even if it's a minority, that small group or smaller group brings a lot more energy than the majority, right? And that's, you know, that's why there's no longer a thing called the Disinformation Agency, right? That's why this thing got rolled up, because the energy that's there in the, you know, groups of people, and not everybody believes the same thing. Not everybody agrees with each other. In fact, there's a lot of disagreement, and there's a lot of wrong thinking. A lot of things are gotten wrong, but still the energy is there. So this is something else that she had, practice informational distancing.
My name is Nina Jankowicz, and I am the Disinformation Fellow at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for
She's a Disinformation Fellow.
Scholars in Washington, D.C. Well, as I'm sure a lot of your readers and members know, fact-checking, especially in these highly emotional times, doesn't always work as well as we want it to. In fact, there's a lot of research that shows that it does the opposite.
Yeah, because the fact-checkers suck. And one of them, the guy who ran Snopes, he had a partner who was his business partner who owned half of Snopes, and his wife, and he went to Las Vegas and banged a stripper. And that's the guy who was telling you, and then, you know, he betrayed his wife and his viewers and the site Snopes, which was the big one, right? And that's the kind of character he had and the kind of person he was. And he was responsible for telling you and he had no real, like, you know, I mean, just anybody can go to the official story and tell you why some narrative outside of the official story isn't true, but that doesn't mean you're some truth expert, right?
So what I'm encouraging individuals to do in particular, just your normal, average, everyday citizen, is to practice informational distancing, where
informational distancing.
Recognizing that disinformation and misinformation often run on emotional manipulation. When you feel your emotions rising, to just walk away from your device for a little bit, let yourself cool down. And
so that doesn't sound like the stuff she was saying, that it was all about keeping people safe from disasters. This sounds a lot like, you know, when somebody's saying something that doesn't go along with the official story and it pisses you off when you hear about how the government or the media has done something evil, right? You know, we spend more money on weapons that do harm to people all over the world. Our number one expenditure is to create weapons, our military industrial complex and military. And we're saying that, you know, people talking is more of a threat, right, than our military and our, you know, our predisposition to war and creating wars and, you know, funding wars in other countries and getting rid of leaders in other countries and all the manipulation that our intelligence community does, but people like sharing opinions that are outside the mainstream reality is more of a threat, right? That's what this person's saying.
Then start to consider the source. Why does that particular...
Consider the source. Some great man once said that. Who said that? I can't remember. Some guy. Consider the source. Who said that?
Consider the source.
Oh, she's a white girl? Yes, I am a white girl. I am a white girl.
So, for example, my wife's on the phone with her hairdresser or her friend. She's like, really? Okay, I can't wait to see you. That's going to be great. Fantastic. What time? 12 o'clock? My wife is from Spain. And she said, blah, blah, blah.
We have very few ingredients. We have tomatoes. We have, how do you say it? Cucumbers. We have red pepper. We have, of course...
It's not easy, and I think part of it is that I'm in shape before I have a baby, and then I stay active when I'm pregnant, and I'm not trying to stay thin. I'm just trying to keep my circulation going and stretching and keep my muscle tone up, and then we're having a baby. It was a surprise, a wonderful surprise.
And one time at band camp,
it was a surprise, a wonderful surprise.
And one time at band camp,
it was a surprise, a wonderful surprise.
Well, there was a scream I heard, which is the scream that's normally reserved if there's a spider in the house on Long Island. I'm not exaggerating.
So the first part of the book is philosophy on how to live very namaste. I have 3 little babies. I live kind of a crazy life between work and them and everything else. So it's just, you know, how to stay calm and centered and deal with things that are coming at you. Then we could talk about food.
Consider the source.
Oh, she's a white girl? Yes, I am a white girl. I am a white girl.
Source have an interest in emotionally manipulating you.
And when he said consider the source, Alec Baldwin, he was talking about the New York Post, which was discredited on Hunter Biden until the New York Times, which is supposed to be a much more credible paper, came late to the party and admitted that, yes, that was Hunter Biden's hard drive, which should have changed the election, should have changed everything. And the media and everyone else covered it up. And so the New York Post, which sucks, in terms of its credibility, but it's been much more right, you know, consider the source.
Is it a credible source? Has that journalist or that author written about this stuff before? Do they have the credentials to do so?
Credentials, the official credentials from the official beast.
And then if it's breaking news, especially, of which we have a lot these days, checking it against multiple sources, just doing kind of a lateral read.
You know, about mainstream media. It's they're always telling you the truth.
Information to make sure it's being reported elsewhere and that it's not just actual fake news.
Actual fake news in air quotes.
It's how you hide a little lie, little lie. It's how you hide a little lie, little lie.
And so let's get to it here.
is a lie. But this lie, his big lie.
The big lie.
His own big lie.
The big lie. I doubt any of them are stupid enough to believe the big lie.
Of the big lie.
By the big lie. Deranged by the big lie.
Continue to perpetuate the big lie.
That big lie and the big lie, because the big lie.
The big lie is the big lie.
The big lie. This whole big lie election.
There is a new big lie making the rounds. And big lies, a big lie. These big liars
is the big lie. The big lie is just that, a big lie.
President Trump told a big lie, one of the biggest ever told. This big lie is perpetrate and act upon the big lie that Donald Trump perpetrated the big lie. The face of provable lies. Lies that right now are
continuing. Big lie.
Trump's lies. Conspiracy theorists would rather travel across the country in service of the big lie.
Extraordinarily dangerous to spread the big lie.
Pose the big lie.
Standing against the big lie. Yeah, I said it.
We know that the big lie was cooked up.
You got the big lie.
About the function of the big lie.
Have been banned from sites like Facebook and Twitter, but his interviews with right-wing media where he continues to repeat the big lie.
They're part of the big lie. Goebbels and the great lie. You keep repeating the lie, repeating the lie. Big lie. People will know it's one thing for one man, one woman, to repeat the lie over and over and over again.
Anatomy cast members show support for reproductive health amid possible Roe versus Wade reversal. This is the person who plays Gray, somebody Gray, and she's very irritating. Let's see what they have to say here.
Knowledge is power. It's time for you to be in the know.
You got to be in the know. Knowledge is power. You got to have the knowledge, but not disinformation. You got to distance yourself.
Women are powerful. You are powerful.
You're powerful, women.
Being powerful means having options.
Having options. People who are powerful have choices and options.
Know your options. Get on birth control now.
Get on birth. I don't think I need to. I'm a 50-something-year-old man. I can't even remember my age. I'm so old. I don't know. I don't know, powerful woman. That doesn't sound right for me. I know. I know you guys are putting out this. I mean, I know you're actors and everything, but I don't think I should be on birth control.
Birth control now.
Any form that is reliable.
Oral contraceptives, Nuvaring.
Norplant, IUD, something. Now.
No, I'm now, right now. I don't have anything. Do I gotta go to a drugstore?
Remember to use condoms with the birth control every single time, no exceptions.
And test. Take a pregnancy
Is that what being powerful is all about?
test every 4 to 5 weeks.
Buy a bunch now. Get comfortable taking them.
Tests are important.
Remember, you
The tests are important. We've heard this before with COVID.
can get pregnant the first time you have sex. You can get pregnant if you don't consent.
You need to know as soon as possible if you're pregnant.
Every 4 to 5 weeks may seem like a lot, but time is of the essence.
Time to the essence. Time's running out, and you're powerful. Your choices.
With the law.
If you find out that you are pregnant and do not want to be, you have very little time.
Do not shut down.
This will be hard, but you can't delay.
Speak to
Whoa, it's just like a Mission Impossible.
someone you trust.
There are ways to safely seek care privately, even if you need to leave your state to do it.
Share this information with your friends.
Be a resource to anyone that needs it. This is a terrible time, and
It's a terrible time in America.
everyone is afraid.
But
I'm afraid. Be very scared. Be very afraid. Get on birth control. Wear 4 condoms just in case,
options keep a woman powerful. You are powerful.
I'm powerful. I'm powerful. If I don't feel powerful, I feel confused. China warns of dangerous situation developing ahead of Biden Asia trip. China warned the U.S. that President Biden's visit to East Asia this week could put their relations in seriously jeopardy if the officials play the Taiwan card during the trip. China's threatening America and Jojo Magoo. Of course, they gave him and his son and his brother $5 million, and they expect him to come through for him. Ozzy Osbourne dons gothic eyeliner. He's spotted leaving a California recording studio with his wife Sharon, 69, just weeks after it was revealed the Black Sabbath star caught COVID for the first time. And there he is. I mean, he's really ghouling it up here. There's the eyeliner. There's the nail polish and the weird nails. There's the cane. It's Ozzy. There he is again. There's his buddy, his little pal, this little gremlin ghoul here, Sharon. And they're going together. There he is before, holding a cross. And so Ozzy's ghouling it up. But not to be outdone, here's Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp wears truth ring to court amid Amber Heard legal battle. I know there are tough times that you're not able to, be in any movies like, Hogwarts or, Harry Potter prequel that they cut you out of. But can you afford more than a safety pin for your earring? But here it says truth. Look at this guy, right? How can this guy be your hero? I know that Amber Heard is completely unlikable and a horrible person. But there he is there with his truth ring. And the guy's so creepy, right? Him and his devil-worshipping movies and things that he's involved in. So I want to bring all this back to the Lampsilis mussel, right? What I covered in the beginning of this video. And you have this creature that, because of its expanded consciousness, or whatever is going on a soul level, is able to manifest something that's far beyond its physical capacity, right? It's able to reach out and do something spectacular that's just beyond its comprehensive level, its intelligence level, its physical level, all of it. I mean, it manifests physically, but I mean, this is like artwork it's producing, right? You think about all these beautiful birds and the things that evolve. I mean, I have lots of other things I could talk about here that I'm not going to. These various creatures that have learned to adapt or have, changed the way that they're structured so they can perform a certain task in terms of gathering food or whatever it is, right? Like an anteater having a long tongue, to stick through, into the ant holes or the ant colonies and things like that, right? There's so many things like that, right? Over-functioning. And Master Charger used to give this wonderful example that if you hang honey off of a rope from the ceiling, ants will crawl up the wall over the ceiling, upside down, on like some sort of Mission Impossible, like a Mission Impossible task, over the ceiling, down the rope and into the honey pot, and then back up and bring it back to the ant colony, right? And so you have these creatures that overperform, that do things that are beyond their capacity to do, right? One times we went to this, we have bees, we have 2 beehives. And bees do remarkable things, right? We talked about how they learn to kill these killer hornets by raising the temperature to something that, they can tolerate temperatures to like 118, and the hornets, it's like 110. And so they can raise the temperature of the hive if they identify the threat, and they can fry the hornets. Like, they have all these things. And one of the guys who was in charge of, like, he was this beekeeper was telling stories. He said he went out and there was this natural group of bees, they were outside of a hive. It was a swarm of bees. And it was raining, and they formed like a tent with their wings, so the rain, like a roof, so the rain would wash over them, and they were protecting their queen and things like this. So you have all these wonderful examples of animal life overperforming. And if you look at human beings right now, and it's a big problem. This is the real problem with disinformation, like real disinformation, is that people find out they're wrong. They find out that their point of view is wrong, that they've made a mistake, and they don't do anything to correct it. They don't admit they're wrong, and they still will follow through with their actions and beliefs based in something they now know is wrong. They won't reverse their course. I mean, this happens all the time. And we see it here with these mainstream media people. We see it with this disinformation board that quit, that folded, and the woman who ran it quit. She's supposed to be a disinformation fellow because of, they're supposed to battle disinformation. They're vampire kill slayers. And the first vampire they faced, the first villain they faced, they collapsed, right? And quit, and they're still being talked about like they're serious. No, you failed. There's a reason for it, right? And, it's like this guy, Chris Hayes, using this, information war, and her using that term that comes from, Alex Jones, who's the big shill out there that, had this, or the Ben Swan thing where they've used that, where you can see in the mainstream media, they're trying to be us, right? You hate us because you ain't us, right? You hate us because you ain't us because... their stuff sucks. They don't, they've lost. The mainstream media has lost to the internet and the so-called disinformation, the government. And everyone's lost to, and it's not one person or a centralized group. It's people who have a much bigger grasp of, narratives outside of the mainstream narrative and are putting out much more truth. And, it's the same in the truth community. People find out they're wrong and they don't admit to it. I mean, everyone can have this tendency, but when you realize you're wrong about something, you have to change your course. You don't lock in and say, all right, I'm just going to stick with this, right? Like God shows you something. You have these creatures who are outperforming, who are coming up with almost miraculous type of presentations to their existence. And, human beings are denying reality, right? The scope of reality being, this lambsillus mussel and its ability to produce something out of its capabilities. It's functioning on a level of reality that human beings, are denying. We have all these capacities. We have opposable thumbs. We have, intellect, our perception of the world. We have great senses, good vision, our ability to see reality around us. We have, the intellect, and we have, scientific principles and tools like computers and, all these ways that we can be informed. We have a soul, like an evolved soul that we can have contact with, meditating on our cellular heartfulness meditation, connecting with God within, and having a divine vision and being in the flow of things, right? Being in the spiritual zone, connecting with God and being on your soul's path. We have all these capacities. Intellectually, scientifically, technologically, spiritually. We have far more capacity than any other creature on this planet. And we can't even, face the truth, right? Like simple truths, right? Admitting our wrong, admitting we're wrong, and all these things. It's just a sad, human beings suck so bad right now. Like the lambsillus mussel is just absolutely killing it for its level of creation. And human beings are so remedial and, all these things. We're an embarrassment to, the divine principles. Like we're so underfunctioning. We're so, underachieving, right? It's just pathetic. Only spirituality can save this world. It's Bar Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.